How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am the curator for the Golden Age, and this is another
Lost Heroes of the Golden Age.
This is another Lost Heroes of the Golden Age, and I found a number of heroes and villains who went by the name of The Voice, and I want to spotlight each one of them. So for the rest of this month, we're turning this into Voice Month.
What in the world is wrong with you?
I do videos on YouTube covering Golden Age heroes, talking to a disembodied voice with a jungle girl fixation. So, a lot. It is a lot.
If we're doing The Voice, I believe that I should take over.
No, I don't need you to take over these videos. I'm perfectly capable of doing this.
Why don't you want me to review this?
Because when it comes to heroes, I look at you as very much the antithesis.
And it's so easy when you're evil. This is the life you see. The devil tips his hat to me. I do it all because I'm
stop.
evil.
As much as I appreciate Voltaire, this really isn't the format for it. Let's just get on with this whole thing.
Well, then do it already.
Yes, I have found a number of heroes in different publications who went by The Voice, heroes and villains. So I am going to turn this into Voice Month. The one that we're covering today comes from Quality Comics. Now, I haven't really done a lot of stuff from Quality, despite that they have many heroes. I have covered a few, but I haven't covered a lot. And that is something I would like to change up. I know Doll Man was a big feature in Quality, and I kind of covered him, but that's definitely something I'd want to do a re-review on. But this is about The Voice from Quality Comics. It was really kind of weird. A 6-episode format where they really didn't have any concrete designs, because the main premise stayed the same, but they seemed like they wanted to try something, and in the very next issue they went with something completely different from what they had established in the episode previous. And when you're jumping around that much, there's nothing for you to really grasp on. So I think the only main reason that the character didn't go on farther, despite the fact that he was a disembodied voice with super strength, he did the voice with super strength. There was nothing to really grab onto. I mean, if they had stuck with, well, there was a couple of things they started out with, and if they had stuck to that format, I think this would have been a bit more popular and lasted more than 6 issues. But let's go over a brief cover of what they did, and then we'll do the first issue, which I don't really think you're going to see what they were trying to go for with the first issue, which is what I normally say, because they didn't follow anything that they set up in the first issue. Everything kind of changed. So let's go ahead and cover The Voice from Quality Comics on this Lost Heroes of the Golden Age. Voice, Mr. Elixir, first appeared in Feature Comics number 32 in 1940. Publisher is Quality. He is made by Stan Ash. He only had 6 appearances, and he only appeared on the cover of his first appearance, number 32. He wasn't a cover feature, though. In the Feature Comics, they put, like, pictures of, like, other people who are appearing in the comic, and despite the fact that he had 6 issues, he only appeared on the first one. I think that the reason he wasn't more popular is because they had no idea what they were doing with him. His stories, except for pretty much who he is, kept changing. When we get to the first issue, it's going to be kind of weird. This guy is over 100 years old, and they explain why. And they did not have any idea what they were doing with him. His concept kept changing. In the first couple of issues, he's taking down organized crime. And so you think he's going to be a crime buster. And then in his last couple issues, he solves murders. There wasn't any consistency about it. It seemed like whenever they set up a premise in the comic book, they changed it. In one of the issues, he sets up this two-way mirror and speaks behind it like some villains have done when they didn't want to show their face. But he only did that in one issue. And then in a couple of issues, the police knew who he was because he kept saying, "My name is Elixir the Voice." But in the last couple of issues, the police didn't know who he was. He's even solved the crimes. And one time he goes to the police station and says, "Hey, I can solve these murders." And they kick him out saying that he's a crazy old kook. And I'm like, you've worked with him for a number of issues. You know Elixir is the Voice. Now you're throwing this guy out and completely dismissing him. The only real consistency is that he got super strength by... Okay, in the first issue, we realize that he's eating this fruit from a tree that preserves his life and gives him strength. And when he comes back to the mainland, he recreates the formula and then uses it to fight crime. And then he learns how to do voice throwing and sleight of hand magic from books. And he does this to fight crime. But, like I said, at first he's fighting organized criminals and he's the scourge of crime. And then he's solving murder mysteries. And through all 6 issues, he wears a suit and a hat. No mask or anything. And in the very last issue, they added a cape to his ensemble, which didn't really go with the suit. I mean, the suit was fine. Now you're adding in a cape. What were they going to do if he went on for a 7th issue? Add in a mask and costume? I don't know. The consistency of this is all over the place. If they had a more grounded storyline, it's possible that he would have gone for more than 6 issues. But the stories were somewhat intriguing. He appeared near the back of the comic book, and each of the stories were only 4 pages. Now, I know, 4-page story, that's not very big, but Quality did their comics in a very different way than other Golden Age stories were doing them back then. So in the 4-page stories, they actually had a lot of story included. You can see in the pictures that I'm showing here, there are a lot of panels on each page. So, I mean, these 4-page stories would be like maybe 6 or even 7 pages in other publications. So, let's go ahead and cover his first appearance. And first appearance isn't going to be like anything else. All of these stories were widely different and worked in many different ways, coming up with ideas that did not follow into the next issue, except for him consuming the leaves of the plant that he managed to make to give himself his super strength and prolong his life. That's the only thing that followed through all 6 of these. So let's take a look at the first issue so you can see how he was developed. And then I don't know. I'd say you can get an idea of where they were planning to go, but I don't even think that they knew where they were planning to go. So let's get into this. The Voice. In the year 1790, a ship was sunk by a typhoon in the South Seas. A man, his wife, and the small boy survived the disaster. They drifted to a small tropical island and found only rare, life-giving herbs for food. The man and the wife finally died, but the magic of the herbs preserved the life of the boy. 150 years later, a ship stops at the unknown island and an old man is taken from its shores. Okay, that's the opening. 1 year later, we can see the old man in a rooming house in America. I must find it. I must. And we see that he's having a rent issue. We never found out what he does for a living. Okay, so we find out that he can't pay the rent, and this guy decides to help him. I can take care of this week's rent. You can pay me back later. With what job? Okay, so he tells him that he saved his life, and he says the old man tells of his long life of the tropic South Sea Island. And these herbs made it possible for me to live till now. I brought only a small box of them back to civilization, and my supply is almost exhausted. A number of questions arise. First of all, what the heck is this tree? It's 150 years later. I would sure like to know what this life is. Second of all, why did you only bring a small supply with you? Also, why did you leave the island? You seem to have been perfectly content there. And if this is really what was preserving you, why didn't you bring a long supply back? Why didn't you tell the people, hey, if we set up something here, we can provide people with, I don't know, an ample supply of life-preserving materials that give people super strength? There's so many questions that don't get properly answered. Let's see, I have been working for months to discover their chemical properties. Ordinary food is not enough for me. If I cannot make more of this food, I will die in a few weeks, which raises the question, why didn't you bring back more? Okay, maybe you did. It does say 1 year later, so you obviously brought back enough for a year's worth, but you even say, let's see, I brought only a small box of them. I just don't see why you brought such a little bit with you. You should have brought back a large supply, especially if it was preserving your life. Now, this guy doesn't believe him and says he's nuts, and a week passes. The old man works feverishly. Suddenly, late one night, he accidentally spills a vial of chemical liquid. So a week later, he accidentally stumbles onto the formula when it lands on the plant. It looks and it tastes just like the tropical herb food I've been trying to make. This is it, the life-giving herb. I feel as strong as a giant, but wait. So he lifts up the piano. I know how these pianos are made. If you lift that thing up by the keys, you're going to break the keys off. Okay, so this guy is spying on him, and he's like, you're the only man alive who knows my discovery. And he explains how old he is. Wait a minute, you said you told him about your life on the sea. So why are you now telling him that you're 150 years old? Didn't you already tell him that? He's got the elixir of life, and he can do anything. And he decides that he will fight organized crime. Like I said, that was the starting premise. It didn't stay. And he's like, and you will help me. What? And we never see this guy again. I'm not joking. In all 6 issues, this is the last time we see the guy who says, you will help me. Time passes. The old man has learned about the arts of ventriloquism, hypnotism, and sleight of hand from books. It has a real Ninja Turtles by Michael Bay vibe to it, where Splinter taught his students jujitsu or martial arts out of a book. Alright, suddenly one day later, as if tested by fate, Mr. Elixir reads the tempting headlines. Daily Mail, daring holdups in Park Lane District. Really? That's the article? I love how with this text box here, the printing of the paper has moved so you could still read it. But there's no way that your headline starts in the middle of the page. It would take up the entire page, but they condense it so you can read the whole thing, and it's completely ridiculous. Let's see, at least 5 holdups have been committed by a gang operating between 5th and Vanderpool Avenues involving a reported $250,000 in cash. I mean, like, look at this paper. Everything is condensed so you can read it. But they could have centered this on there and printed everything, but they hold it at an angle so it gives you kind of an action side, but there is no newspaper that would start printing it like this. I know, it's done for us so we can read, but the fact that they do it like that looks completely ridiculous. You have seen a number of the videos that I report, that I've done, where they show reports or news headlines, and they give us a firm, straight view of the paper or the news story. But since this is at an angle, it condenses it and it makes it look extremely ridiculous. We saw the same thing with Lady Luck when she saw the ad that she thought was a cry for help. Nobody prints on paper this way. They should have showed us a straight on view so it wouldn't look silly and ridiculous. Later the next afternoon, Mr. Elixir overhears a hushed conversation as he stands in the doorway near Madison's home. You have a remarkable way for being at the right place at the right time. So he sees a license plate and decides to head off the car. Stick 'em up, Morgan. Hand over the money that you're carrying. Good heavens! A neat haul. Let's see, 10,500. 15 minutes later, Morgan is held up again by a gang of men. So they take the money from Morgan, and Morgan, terrified, flees home. Police, this is Henry T. Morgan. I've been robbed of more than $10,000 at Vanderpool and Hudson Avenue. Okay, you could have just told him the exact amount. More than, it's $500 more than, but you could have been more exact. Okay, then we come over to the gang's hideout, and there's nothing in this bag we got from Morgan. We've been double-crossed. Let's see, hello, Muggs, this is the chief. Morgan didn't get away with the money. Another guy got it before you nailed Morgan. How did you figure that out? You'll find this bird at 206 Hill Street with the cash. Don't fail this time. Who's the chief? How did he know all this? Okay. So they go to this room, knock down the door. They said that nobody's here. Suddenly, the light flashes on and the old man stands in the corner. Gentlemen, this is the voice. Meanwhile, Police Avenue. This is where the phone call came from, boys. Sergeant O'Donnell. This is Elixir, the voice. Here is the gang who have committed the recent street holdups. What? That old man say... Okay, let me retry this because this sentence is stupid. What the... Is that old man saying that? No, there's an old man standing in the room, obviously. It's not him saying it. Okay, so he explains what the holdup job is to them. They have operated under direction of John Marston, the jewelry collector, who tipped them off to certain people who had just been paid big sums for jewelry they had sold to Marston. Then the sellers were robbed of the money and Marston got most of it back. So basically what was happening is these people, I guess they pawned or sold their jewelry and they got a lot of money for it. And then the crooks would rob the people who just got a lot of money for the jewelry they sold, and they would give some of it to Marston while they would keep a bit of it for themselves. So that's actually a pretty decent, gig. Later at Henry T. Morgan's home, Henry Morgan, It was I who held you up and took your money to prevent real bandits from getting it. I now give it back to you. This is Elixir, the voice. Why do you keep telling people who you are? I thought you were trying to keep a low profile. I like the way that Quality had in the next issue, right down here, more of the voice in the June issue of Feature Comics. On sale April 20... Wait a minute. You said that more of the voice in the June issue on sale in April. You know what? I'm done. I've reviewed the story. That's all. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Quality Comics definitely does things a little differently. I hope you're ready for the rest of Voice Month. It's not going to get any better. Okay, and until next time, I'll be seeing you.